Hello, Ni hao. Thank you for inviting me to join your conference. I recall with pleasure my previous visit to your organization, which I know makes a very important contribution to the quality of Guangzhou's technical and vocational education and training system. Many of you will have watched and listened to the recent WorldSkills conference session on the WorldSkills Occupational Standards Development Center. If you haven't done so, may I commend it to you since it's highly relevant to what I shall now be speaking about. I'm aware that China, including its industry partners such as VCOM, has a deep and broad interest in the benefits of WorldSkills membership for its further systems development. Therefore, I have given myself the task of ensuring that you have a clear understanding of the special nature and potential of the WorldSkills Occupational Standards, so as to move forward in a confident and efficient way. Now, I'm dividing my time into 4 parts, and here they are. What is the WorldSkills Occupational Standard? Why is it important? What is its direction and potential? And what are the implications for China? So starting with what is the WorldSkills Occupational Standard? 10 years ago, the challenge for WorldSkills was to harmonize the diverse results of all its members' TVET systems by establishing a single benchmark or standard that could unite them, because it felt important and accessible for all of them. And the answer was the WorldSkills Occupational Standard. Now, at its most direct, the WorldSkills competition enables members to compare the outputs of their TVET systems. Members compete and then return home with endorsements and/or lessons. TVET across the world is highly diverse, even within regions. This is because its main purpose is to meet its own country's social, economic, cultural, and political purposes. Every country is unique in each of these ways. Therefore, its TVET is as well. Although some systems are more advanced than others, this does not mean that we should adopt one of those as a benchmark, because they wouldn't suit other countries or their societies or their economies. Now, all members want their own country to maintain and grow a highly skilled workforce and a successful economy. They look for a TVET system that allows well-developed young people to move efficiently into a thriving labour market that rewards talent. Therefore, the point of convergence for all members is excellent performance in a worthwhile occupation. Now, the WorldSkills Occupational Standard is in 2 parts. It has a description of a work role within its context and a table showing the knowledge, skills, and behaviors of a fully work-ready young person in a globally recognizable occupation. And both those parts are important. So the origins of the WorldSkills Occupational Standards are as follows. To create a guide for members' team preparation, WorldSkills has worked with global and regional occupational classification systems. The International Labour Organization, ILO for short, classifies occupations and publishes masses of data. Its system, called ISCO 2008, classifies work by group or sector, by skill level, and skill specialization. For the ILO, skill means the ability to carry out the tasks and duties of a particular job. This matches WorldSkills' own use of the word skill. Most member countries use the ILO's classification and data for their own economic analyses. Now, ISCO 2008, as I mentioned, analyzes occupations down to occupational unit group detail. Then two regional occupational classifications, ONET and ESCO, extend the ILO's classification further and describe work in much more detail. ONET is based on the North American or USA labour market, and ESCO is its European equivalent. You can see the references to each of these classifications in section 12 of each technical description. In addition to consulting occupational classifications, WorldSkills observes work and consults WorldSkills experts and indeed industry and business. Turning to the characteristics of the WorldSkills Occupational Standard, please remember that it is not an occupational classification system in its own right. It is a referencing tool, a tool that represents broad, progressive occupational practice, sets a scope and limits for a competition, tries to be as easy to use as possible in length and presentation, includes specialist, technical, and generic knowledge, skills, and behaviors, indicates through weightings what matters most and least, and is regularly updated to reflect the movement of labour markets. Turning now to why the WorldSkills Occupational Standard is so important, there are three broad reasons and one detailed reason. Broadly, it provides a common currency, a rate of exchange across member countries. It tells members what occupational mastery looks like. It connects members to the classifications that link them to labour markets and economies domestically and internationally. And the detailed reason is that it models best practice in assessment, going beyond skills tests to performance tests that take account of working practices in their environments, purposes, processes, and outcomes. For this, we need to take account of the marking scheme and test projects, which must each be carefully and tightly linked to the WorldSkills Occupational Standard and follow their weightings. And I'll pause for a moment while you see each of those items. Turning now to these standards as a reference tool for TVET, there is international research on the value of the WorldSkills Occupational Standard alongside ONET and ESCO as a referencing tool for TVET. This is valuable because it enables TVET systems to measure the gap in depth and breadth between national and regional TVET systems and the occupational standard. It is right for there to be a gap because TVET must directly and specifically relate to the labour market and economy that it's supposed to serve, as well as to other criteria. Even so, much of current TVET across the world lacks breadth and depth because it may take a functional and non-progressive view of TVET, and that's disappointing. Now, for successful referencing, one needs to understand the essential differences between an occupational standard and a TVET or qualification standard, and this image may help. alongside the following points. Occupational standards are looked at for qualification design, so there will be some similar content or overlap. Both types of standard use the formats of learning outcomes. Members are usually more familiar with qualification standards than with occupational ones, so they may assume that that's what the WorldSkills Occupational Standard is. But each type of standard is different. Occupational equals work. Qualification equals work plus other outcomes. And another consideration to take in mind is the nature of each society. Free market economies create a lot of diversity in work and tend to put the responsibility for progression onto the individual. More authoritarian societies may be equally restrictive, but in different ways. Societies with strong worker representation may take more responsibility for employee development and create more consistent arrangements with greater opportunities throughout their TVET system. Now, in addition to responsibility and complexity, Western societies tend to rate autonomy highly. Eastern systems tend to rate cultural values more highly than autonomy. Now, I mention these points because they're integral to successful referencing to the WorldSkills Occupational Standard, which favors transversal skills and progression highly for reasons that I shall now go on to. So turning now to the WorldSkills Occupational Standard as a tracker for labour markets and economies, the standard is well positioned to track changes and trends in labour markets. Most of these changes will be monitored through the ILO and direct employer feedback, such as many of your employers have given us in the past and hopefully will continue to do so. Online classifications like ONET and ESCO can reflect changes in as little as 3 years, but most qualification systems find it difficult to make changes in under 5 years. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Currently, the WorldSkills competition represents a skewed sample of global labour markets. WorldSkills has been much more efficient in modernising its skill competitions than in removing the competitions that have least validity or value. You will see the progress of WorldSkills in tracking the movement of demand for skilled labour in this slide. For the foreseeable future, the WorldSkills Occupational Standard will mainly follow trends in labour markets. However, it will also be proactive. Alongside the current transversal standards, we shall, for example, soon add new transversal skills for sustainability, following the lead of the United Nations. Now, what does that mean in practice? Historically, skills competitions have been chosen by members with light quality assurance by WorldSkills International. Members' demand has then decided how long each skill competition should remain in place, with a minimum number of competitors required for each cycle. But we all know that once a skill competition has been chosen, it gains its own internal supporters and may lose its connection with true demand. Therefore, my personal view is that we should now begin to create an overview of labour market needs worldwide so that we can look at how the current portfolio of skills competitions relates to global priorities, and integrated with other practical considerations, we should decide how quickly the skill competitions should converge with global priorities. Then we might set up groups, including external membership, to review existing skill competitions where boundaries between them are changing, leaving gaps and overlaps. Offer members guided choice for proposing new skill competitions based on rational, evidence-led forecasts of global labour markets. And finally, use transversal skills to respond to urgent issues affecting all work. These include new technologies and sustainability. For all this work, the WorldSkills Occupational Standards are the shared currency, the strategic tool for growing the collective value of the skill competitions when they appear on the world stage. Now, moving to my third section, I shall look at the roles of WorldSkills global partners. And turning first to their mission, there are common themes among global partners for TVET in communication and connection. WorldSkills International especially works with UNESCO, the European Union's research centre called CEDAFOP, and the ILO. Each of these have become partners in the WorldSkills Occupational Standards Development Centre. There are also, though, many other active global supporters. Now, communication and connection are being progressed in many ways. For example, through the common use of learning outcomes, through the descriptors of occupations in terms of knowledge, skills, and behaviours, instead of the old way using organisational types, sizes, and sectors. And also there are global initiatives such as digital literacy, plus the whole sustainability agenda. You may know that UNESCO's Third International Congress for TVET, held in Shanghai in 2012, agreed to explore the possibility of developing international guidelines on quality assurance for the recognition of qualifications based on learning outcomes. This included the proposal that a set of world reference levels be created to facilitate the international recognition of TVET qualifications. Since 2014, WorldSkills has been a member of the expert group working on these world reference levels. And at the WorldSkills competition 2017 is in Abu Dhabi, we tested the first world referencing tool. Then in 2020, we tested the tool against competitors' results at WorldSkills 2019 in 7 skill competitions. Now, here you see the result against UNESCO's 8-point hierarchy for the relative complexity, responsibility, and autonomy of work roles. These results were based on performance within the top quartile of WorldSkills competition results. We also looked at the difference in positions between the top quartile and the median in 2 competitions. Here you see the result, which shows a difference in competitors' performance. I shall come back to this material in a few minutes' time. You may also be aware that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, known as the OECD, currently reviews the vocational readiness of students reaching the end of their compulsory schooling. The OECD now plans to assess the quality of its members' actual TVET systems, and WorldSkills is closely associated with this initiative. Again, I shall come back to this. Now, in bringing this section to a close, the message I hope you will receive is that in an age of technology and environmental crisis, there is a global race for human capital, for skilled and versatile people to grow and apply their expertise with mobility and great urgency. To smooth their path, qualifications and skills must travel widely. And this is a new focus, a shared focus for our global agencies. WorldSkills is proud to be part of this through its WorldSkills Occupational Standards and all that these standards entail. So finally, what are the implications of all this for China? Although China is not a member of every international agency, it is very well connected for monitoring the trends and responses occurring across the world, and which WorldSkills is connected to. Like every other member, China uses its participation in the WorldSkills movement to inform and develop its own system. Therefore, as I would say to every member, for successful transfer, one must go back to this model that I showed you a little earlier. Here are some key points. A WorldSkills Occupational Standard does not have levels that relate to qualifications. It has levels that relate to ILO labour market ranking. By itself, a WorldSkills Occupational Standard is not an operational standard. It's a specification that sets out the dimensions of occupational mastery. To become operational, there must also be a marking scheme and a test project. These three items, the standards, the marking scheme, the test project, can then be used to assess either a workplace requirements and/or a competitor's or a candidate's performance and/or the relationship to qualifications and performance levels as you use them in your country. Now, to make use of these WorldSkills assets, one needs to already have or to create a TVET system that has well-designed, agreed level descriptors for qualifications, certification, and recognition, plus an agreed way of relating these to other national or regional qualification systems. As a minimum, this last point is essential for the import and export of goods and services. However, for productive collaboration with WorldSkills, it is also important. A short while ago, I mentioned world reference levels and showed you examples of high and median WorldSkills performers and what this can mean for work. For mechatronics, we see here the performance relating to an excellent performer relative to the performance of a good worker. A simply competent worker would fall inside the lines for each. With fashion technology, the median worker is a good all-rounder, as the English would say, while the excellent worker looks like an entrepreneur within that fashion sector. I show you these examples because it would be good for China to use world reference levels to see where its competitors fit on this global scale. Just as background, here is a slice of WorldSkills competition results showing high, median, and low competitors' marks. In this way, you can see how we differentiate. I also referred to the OECD's plans to survey all its members' TVET outputs. The planning has raised interesting questions about assessment, especially assessment done globally. Using the WorldSkills Occupational Standards as a benchmark, assessment may take several forms. A test of theory, that is generally question and answer, multiple choice, and so forth, a skills test, or a contextualized performance test. Now, the first two are easiest to simulate using online methods, and by doing so, to get more consistency across the world. However, as valid assessment methods, these have limitations. WorldSkills advocates performance tests, which situate skills tests in realistic work settings. And this takes me back to my first and second visits to China this century in 2010. On my first visit, I witnessed a national welding competition in the college in Chengdu. It was a skills test, and the competition standards and arrangements were, I'm afraid, very poor. We talked about these standards, and 2 months later, I visited the same welding competition, now based in Lincoln Asia's training center. The standards were completely different and much, much higher. And after more travel and training, the winner then became the silver medalist at WorldSkills London in 2011. China's growth in genuine skills development has been quite awesome over the last decade. And the continuation of this for your system is a great deal to do with how you now position your own TVET relative to work. There are many good systems for TVET training and assessment across the world. Online, though, there is only one I know of that uses supportive technology for all-round performance training and assessment, and that one is still at development stage. You have an opportunity here. Finally then, as another opportunity, I must also mention the WorldSkills Occupational Standard Development Center, which will open in January 2022. The center will do 4 main things. It will keep the standards safe, of high quality and up to date. It will support members' development of TVET by using the WorldSkills Occupational Standards as a referencing tool. It will help to converge the skills competitions with the global movement of labour markets, technology, and sustainability through the medium of the WorldSkills Occupational Standards. And it will support the collective and individual capacity building and expertise of the WorldSkills movement. This is a WorldSkills Centre hosted by Skills Finland and based on the principles of sharing, of members giving according to their expertise and taking according to their need. To support your own remarkable efforts in vocational development, we very much hope that WorldSkills China will become a major participant in the centre, which has been designed for the global common good. I shall now finish with UNESCO's definition of our WorldSkills Occupational Standard. It is a tool with a vision. Please use it with both words in mind, a tool and a vision. Thank you. Seshe.